At some point, you became someone different, and you don't know exactly when it happened. Neither do I. That's kind of the whole thing. Because nobody tells you that changing is allowed. Nobody sits you down and says, you can become someone the people who knew you won't recognize. And that's not a warning. That's just what growing looks like. And the strange part isn't the change itself. The strange part is that you're still using the same name, still sitting in the same rooms, still being recognized by people who are holding a version of you that you've already moved past. You haven't told them. Maybe because you're not sure how. Maybe because you're not sure they'd understand. Maybe because part of you isn't entirely sure what has changed. Only that something has. And that going back to what you were before feels like trying to wear a coat that stopped fitting. And nobody told you that was allowed either. The strange thing about becoming someone different is that it rarely announces itself. It doesn't arrive as a decision. You don't wake up one morning and choose to want different things, to feel differently about the people you've known for years, to find that certain conversations that used to sustain you now leave you emptier than before you had them. It happens the way a season changes. You're not watching for the exact moment the light shifts. You're just living, and then one day you look up and something is different. The angle of things, the weight of them, what matters, and what no longer does in the way it used to. And the disorienting part isn't the change itself. The disorienting part is looking around and realizing that the people who know you haven't updated their version of you. They're still holding the earlier edition, still referencing the beliefs you've quietly set down, still expecting the reactions that used to be yours and no longer are, and you're standing there, somewhere between who you were and who you're becoming, not quite sure how to explain the distance, or whether you owe anyone that explanation at all. Nobody told you that you don't. At some point, usually early, usually before you had the language to question it, you absorbed a set of beliefs about who you were supposed to be. Not because anyone sat you down and delivered them, but because they were in the air, in how the people around you responded when you were too much or not enough, in what got praised and what got quietly corrected, in the shape of the silence after you said the thing that didn't land the way you expected. You learned, without deciding to learn it, what kind of person was acceptable in the rooms you grew up in. What feelings were allowed, what ambitions were reasonable, what version of yourself was safe to show, and what needed to stay further inside, where nobody could find it and make you feel wrong for having it. And here is the thing about beliefs absorbed before you could choose them. They don't feel like beliefs. They feel like facts. They feel like the truth about who you are rather than one particular interpretation of who you were in one particular environment. The work of becoming yourself isn't adding anything new. It's noticing what was installed before you had a say. And asking, honestly, without performance, whether you would have chosen it. There is a particular loneliness that comes with growing. Not the loneliness of being alone. That one is at least legible, at least has a clear shape. This one is quieter. It's the loneliness of being in a room full of people who know you and feeling like the version of you they know is one you've already moved beyond. You're still showing up, still using the same name, sitting in the same chair, laughing at the same moments you've always laughed at, but something inside has shifted. The way you understand certain things, what you find meaningful, what you're no longer willing to perform for the sake of continuity. And the people who love you don't know, not because they're not paying attention, but because you haven't told them, because part of you isn't sure they'd recognize what you've become, because part of you isn't even sure you recognize it yet. This is the thing nobody talks about when they talk about personal growth. They talk about the arrival, the clarity, the confidence, the becoming. They don't talk about the in-between. The period where you've outgrown something, but haven't yet settled into what comes next. Where the old version of you feels like a costume, and the new one isn't fully yours yet. That period is real, and it's longer than anyone tells you. Notice how often you explain yourself, not to other people, to yourself. The internal negotiation that happens before you say something honest. The way you preemptively argue, against your own instincts, your own preferences, your own sense of what you need, as if the wanting itself requires a defense. I want this. But is that reasonable? I feel this. But maybe I'm overreacting. I've changed, but maybe I'm just being difficult. There is something underneath that pattern worth looking at. A belief, installed early and rarely examined, that your internal experience is subject to external approval. That what you feel needs to be vetted before it counts. That who you're becoming requires permission from the people who knew who you were. It doesn't. The most radical thing you can do is not explain the change, not justify the version of yourself that has emerged from years of living and learning and quietly deciding what you're no longer willing to carry, not perform continuity for the sake of other people's comfort. You are allowed to become someone different. You were always allowed. The only person who forgot to tell you that was the version of you who was still waiting for permission. There is a philosopher named Søren Kierkegaard who spent his life thinking about what it means to become who you actually are, not who you were told to be, not who is convenient for others, but who you genuinely are underneath all the layers of expectation and inheritance. He called it the task of becoming a self. And he was careful about that word, task. Not gift, not accident, not something that happens to you automatically. A task. Something that requires attention, honesty, a willingness to keep looking even when what you find is uncomfortable. He believed that most people spend their lives deriving their identity from external mirrors, from what others reflect back, from the roles that were assigned, from the rules of the rooms they grew up in, and that the deepest, most difficult movement is into something else entirely, the place where you stop performing yourself for an audience and start inhabiting yourself from the inside. This doesn't mean rejecting everyone who came before. It means something quieter than that. It means being able to look at the beliefs you inherited and ask, honestly, without performance, which ones you would choose again, and being willing to let go of the ones you wouldn't. Not that you've abandoned who you were, not that the earlier version of you was wrong, or that the people who loved that version were foolish for doing so. It means something was growing even when you weren't watching. Something underneath the beliefs you inherited, underneath the accommodations you made, underneath the version of yourself you showed to rooms where it felt safer to be smaller, something was always moving toward its own shape. That something is what you're starting to recognize now. It shows up in what you can no longer pretend to agree with, in the relationships that used to feel essential and now feel like wearing a coat that doesn't fit, in the moments when someone references the old version of you and you feel the gap between that reference and where you actually are. These aren't signs that something went wrong. They're signs that something went right. The self that's emerging isn't a departure from who you were. It's what who you were was always pointing toward. You didn't lose yourself. You're finding what was underneath the version of yourself you were taught to show. I want to say something that someone should have said to you earlier. You don't need permission to be different from who you were. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that you've outgrown. You don't need to make your growth legible to the people who knew you before it happened. You are allowed to want things you didn't used to want. To feel differently about people you used to love without complication. To find that certain beliefs you carried for years no longer hold the same weight. Not because you're wrong to hold them, but because you've lived more since then. Not as a judgment of anyone who couldn't follow where you went, just as the quiet recognition that you are allowed to go there. The version of you that was left behind, the one who didn't know yet, the one who absorbed beliefs she didn't choose, the one who made herself smaller in rooms that couldn't hold her full size. She wasn't a mistake. She was doing the best she could with what she had. She was protecting something real. She was waiting, in her way, for the conditions that would make it safe to become more. You are those conditions now. The work of becoming yourself isn't adding anything new. It's noticing what was installed before you had a say, and choosing quietly, without drama, without needing anyone's permission, what you would keep. You were allowed to change. You were always allowed. Nobody told you. So I'm telling you, now. The becoming doesn't stop here. There will be another version of you on the other side of the next few years that today's version wouldn't fully recognize either. She'll have let go of things you're still holding. She'll have found words for experiences you can't yet name. She'll look back at this moment, this particular uncertainty, this particular in-between, with something like tenderness. You don't have to have it figured out. You don't have to know yet what the change is becoming or where the person you're turning into is going. You just have to stop apologizing for being in motion. That's the only thing anyone who has ever grown has ever had to do. Stop explaining the movement. Stop seeking permission for the direction. Stop waiting for someone to tell you that this, all of this, the uncertainty and the becoming and the quiet revolution of no longer being who you were, is allowed. It always was. If this reached somewhere real for you, if something in here named the change you've been living, without being able to say what it was. Subscribing means the next one will find you too. This channel exists for the in-between, for the versions of yourself you're still figuring out, for the things that are changing before you have language for them. Leave a comment if something stayed with you. What are you in the middle of becoming right now? I'd genuinely like to know.